What's up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Apogee Fitness Podcast, coming to you from the Apogee Therapy Center recording studio. My name is David Carter.
And I'm Kevin Harrington.
Kevin, it's nice to finally have you back.
It is nice to finally be back.
It's been like, what, four episodes?
4 episodes, yeah.
Yeah?
I've been busy doing some photos.
You are the underwater sensation now.
I am. I did a thing, and I went ahead and bought and purchased underwater housing.
So talk a little bit about that, because that was super cool. I think a lot of people that listen to this podcast follow you and saw you post all those pictures. So how did that come about?
A lot of the CrossFit followers, photographers that I follow are basically migrating into the water as well. Jay Knickerbocker is one. He's out of Tampa, Florida. He does Bacon Beatdown and the Pensacola Brawl. And then there's a female photographer for HQ that basically is doing water photography. She did them at the games this year when y'all did the water swim. So it's just kind of sort of like a progression that was going to come here regardless.
Yeah, that's awesome. So is it something you're going to stick to?
Yeah. I mean, it really depends on if the competition has a swim wad or not. I mean, obviously, I'm not going to go take a camera on dry land and with the thing.
So did you practice at all before you did that? Like, you had the scuba gear, you had the...
No, I've always been a swimmer, so I had my snorkel. I knew what I was doing. I wasn't afraid. You know, it's just...
I'm so proud of you.
Thank you.
You're such a trendsetter.
I try.
You are.
Thanks.
Yeah, man. Well, I'm glad you're back.
Thanks. I'm glad to be back.
All right, let's talk about our guest. We've got Jayson here. Jayson Hopper. What's up, buddy?
What's up, man?
Dude, thanks for coming over.
Dude, no problem.
Finally got him on.
We got him on. Well, we can say that we originally had him on before he was famous for like 5 minutes.
For like 5 minutes. And then after that, it was like, well, we'll see you later, man.
That's right. It's funny. I was just messaging with our mutual friend, Brian Friend, a couple hours ago. Mm-hmm. And I mentioned that you were coming on in a couple hours, and I said, don't tell Savon. I don't want him to think Jason's cheating on him or something. But it was, no, I enjoy that podcast a lot. So what's up, dude? How are you feeling?
Feel good.
Yeah?
Amazing.
Are you ready for next weekend?
I am very ready for next weekend.
So,
it's going to be so much fun.
Cool. When people hear this, the Rogue Invitational will not have happened yet, so we're good.
Sweet. When's this coming out?
Probably Tuesday. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, man. So let's start from the beginning, because I think a lot of you kind of came onto the scene really quickly, even in the upstate, really. The first I ever heard about you was at the 2020 Crash Crucible, obviously, with the one that you won. Let's talk even a little bit before that, so people can kind of get to know you a little bit more. So I know through the grapevine that you're from Columbia originally, correct?
Yep.
All right, so talk a little bit about your growing up and what kind of family life you had growing up. Siblings, was sports always a thing for you? Talk a little bit about that.
Okay. I grew up in a, I guess, relatively small town, Lexington, just outside of Columbia. It's pretty grown up now. But grew up in Lexington, born and raised, went to Lexington High School, and kind of just grew up playing sports. Played baseball and football my entire life. And then kind of departed from baseball when I made the decision to play football. And that was my, I think, junior year, And then solely focused on football and kind of just went that stream. I have a brother. He's 30-something.
Oh, so he's much older. How old are you?
24.
Oh.
So he's
much older than you then.
He's 33. He's 9 years older than me.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
Were you guys close when you were younger?
Yeah, very close. Very close. We're very similar. He was playing sports, baseball. He played baseball at Carolina. And then I wanted to play baseball, obviously, because he was the one playing baseball.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, I'm going to be better than him, follow his footsteps. And then he went to South Carolina when I was in middle school, actually, when he was playing in South Carolina. So, like, that middle school boy, like, dream.
Oh, dude,
like,
that's huge.
Yeah, like, he was, like, playing, and I was like, my big brother was on the South Carolina baseball team. It was 2 years before they won back-to-back national championships.
That's awesome.
So, it was, like, he was thriving. So, I thought it was, like, the coolest thing. Be like, hey, like, my brother's playing at South Carolina.
That's cool. How often did you get down there to watch him?
Oh,
I mean, I guess you grew up in Columbia. You were right there. That's right.
20 minutes away. I remember we went all the weekend games.
That's awesome.
What position did he play?
He played outfield and pitcher.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So he was pretty athletic himself then.
Yeah, very. And so, yeah, but we just played sports our whole upbringing. Really, we're super competitive.
So what got you out of baseball, though?
Yeah, so if that was like your dream to play like your brother did, why'd you go football?
I just wasn't very good, honestly. I wasn't. I was really good at football, and I wanted to be really good at baseball, but it just wasn't panning out. I struck out a lot.
What position did you play in football?
Wide receiver.
What did you play in baseball?
They threw me around everywhere because I wasn't very good at that one position. So when people are like, "Hey, where did you play in baseball?" I'm like, "Everywhere." And they're like, "Oh, he must have been."
He was a utility player.
He must have been really good. And I'm like, "No, let me explain." Like when I made an error on shortstop, like you put me in the outfield, and when I made an error in outfield, well, wow, maybe pitch.
It's funny. People who aren't familiar with baseball don't realize how much goes into baseball. Because, I mean, somebody who's just a general fan, they don't understand.
Oh, yeah.
Like I used to want to be a catcher. I really did.
Really? You would want to
sit
down
left-handed catcher.
Dude, it's a beautiful sport.
Yeah.
It is. It's America's pastime.
Yeah, for sure. So football.
I was trying to tell JR that
the
other day, and he was like, "No, basketball." I'm like, "Dude, get out of here, man. What's that?"
I mean,
that was last night.
Yeah.
He asked me if I was watching a Netflix show, and I was like, "Dude, I'm watching the playoffs, dude. Get out of here. It's October."
The NBA started last night.
Did it?
It did.
I know. I was watching the Knicks Celtics on one channel. I was switching between that App State and Coastal Carolina, and then I had the Braves and Dodgers on.
Dude, how about App State, dude? App State beating Coastal.
I know. That's big.
Football?
Chase Bryce played at
Wow.
So when I was at my first year at Clemson, Chase Bryce was my quarterback, scout team quarterback.
Yeah.
And so he was just balled out last night. He had like almost 400 yards passing.
Yeah,
Wow.
he's crushing it. Yeah, so Tyler, the guy I was talking about, he was roommates with Chase.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Coastal's finally undefeated. All right, no,
they got
finally
defeated.
got defeated. Yeah.
I mean, App State, they
crazy.
just break hearts year after year. They're just this unforeseeable like force. But that's cool, man. So you transfer into football, playing wide receiver. I've heard from other podcasts that really became your thing, almost an idol to you, right? That was like a dream. Talk a little bit about football.
Yeah, so it was. I really didn't care. Well, I wanted to play baseball, obviously, growing up in like the middle school days. Like, hey, I want to go to the major leagues, like everybody's dream.
Yeah.
And once that didn't necessarily pan out, it was like, okay, like I want to go to the NFL, you know. And you saw guys like Adam Humphries was thriving at Clemson when I was in high school. I was going up to camp, and they were like, hey, like Hunter Renfro's coming up, like this before anyone knew who Hunter Renfro was. Wes Welker was a big name in the NFL. So you had like these white receivers who were like balling, and they just had really good hands, and they ran really good routes. And that's all they really did, and they were very smart. They weren't like these like 5-star athletes that were like running 4.3s, 6.6, can jump out the roof. It was like, no, like they were just like me. They were built just like me. They were quick, they were smart, and could run really good routes, and they just perfected their craft. And so I kind of took that and I ran with it. I said, okay, if those dudes can do it, then I could do the same thing.
Yeah.
And so from there on, I was just like, I'm going to make sure I outwork everybody that I know, like legit, like whoever plays sports, like football, anything, I'm just going to outwork you. So it's like at the end of this, I have no regrets. Like I've left it all out there. And so just looking back, I stayed after practice, and I ran routes with my quarterback. Even in the off season, we just ran routes. I wasn't the fastest guy, but I knew that the thing that was going to like get me to the next level was being a consistent guy and one who could run routes and get open and catch the ball when it mattered. And so from high school, that's literally all I cared about.
So that's a huge work ethic, especially in high school. You don't see that very often in high school kids, right? Like a lot of kids will play a sport, but then they're more concerned about what's going on the weekend instead of like staying after practice and running routes. So obviously that takes somewhat of a work ethic. Do you feel like you got that from your brother, or your parents instilled that in you when you were a kid, or what?
I don't know if I got that from anyone, actually. I kind of just like I've always wanted like to put in the work, and I knew nothing necessarily came easy. And so whether it was like hitting baseballs off a tee with my brother, or like my dad had a batting cage. We ordered a batting cage. We had it in our backyard.
That's awesome.
Like a pitching machine and everything. It was like we hit a dozen of like hundreds of balls when we went in there. And it was just like at a very young age, I was like taught of like putting in this idea of like extra work, like going above and beyond when no one else is working. And so I just constantly did that, and it kind of transferred over into football. And I've always just wanted to wanted to make sure I was working when like it wasn't necessarily a responsibility. So like when Christmas and Thanksgiving rolled around, like I was out there running stadiums on Christmas Day because I knew there was a good chance that no one else was doing it, and I wanted to be the only one that was actually working. And so I would do these things. I would run routes on like very, very cold days. Like no one's out here running routes when it's almost snowing. Like if it rained right now, it would be a blizzard, and I wanted to make sure that I was the one running routes.
Yeah, he was getting ready to play at New England.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, I'm the next Wes Welker. Here we go.
Do something 10,000 times, you become a professional at it.
No, that's true.
Yeah, so
that's awesome, dude. All right, so you graduate high school. We all know that you played a year at Clemson. How did that come about? Was there a recruiting process there? Did you go to a bigger high school, or was it more on the smaller side?
No, this was one of the biggest ones in the state.
Okay.
Yep.
So while you were in high school, did you guys win any type of state championship? Like, what kind of schools were reaching out to you?
We went to the state championship my senior year. No, not really big schools. I mean, I had there was a few schools that were recruiting me. Clemson was recruiting me. Wake Forest was recruiting me. North Carolina, and then there was like these.
You're saying big schools?
Well,
they're not recruiting you?
No, I mean when you say big,
D1.
dude, you're talking about like South Carolina.
There's
a big difference between South Carolina and Wake Forest.
I get
Huge
that,
difference.
but it's still the ACC.
But when I say big, it's like, what comes to your mind when I say big schools?
Alabama.
Okay, then.
Clemson.
Okay. So when I said, so I had those three were the biggest schools. I had
Sure, yeah.
Wake Forest was recruiting, North Carolina recruited a little bit, and then Clemson, and then some smaller. App State offered. I had a few offers from Coastal, Gardner-Webb, Presbyterian. So those schools around the area.
But you always had it in your mind that you wanted to go to Clemson.
Yeah, so I hated Clemson actually growing up.
All right.
Ironically,
Well,
I was about to say, how could you?
I grew up in Columbia, so I went to South Carolina games at the age of 5, and I had season tickets, and so I never missed a game, never, and loved it, and I just wanted to be a Gamecock, and I hated Clemson. And then once high school came around, I started getting recruited by Clemson and not South Carolina. And
Broke your heart, didn't it?
I was like, exactly. I was like, I don't want you to be recruiting me. Like,
Yeah.
I want to be wearing garnet.
You can't tell them no, though, at some point. You're like,
You can't at all. And so I wanted to be wearing garnet and black. And Clemson was recruiting. They were inviting me up to like camps.
Yeah.
So I went up to camp, and I've never even been to Clemson. And I went up to Clemson, and I was like, dude, this is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Not only the way they treated me, it was Clemson,
Yeah.
you know, and it was something about the hills, you know,
Right.
and it was different than Columbia. And you know, there's just like this, you know, the thing like I grew up in Columbia, so obviously it's gonna be different when like I have a different view of Columbia than someone who is an outsider coming in.
Sure.
Right.
And so I never was like over heels about Columbia. It was like, I just want to wear garnet and black and like, you know, and so.
No, that makes sense. We, last week we had Lindsay Lane on, and she's from Maryland, got recruited by South Carolina, and she had that same kind of thing. Like you went to Clemson, kind of were like enamored by it. She'd never been to South Carolina, Columbia, and was enamored by it. Like, this is awesome. I'm coming here for sure. And she was being recruited by other D1s like Penn State, but South Carolina is where she wanted to go. I shouldn't even be saying this yet because her episode's gonna be released next week.
Oh.
It's okay. We're
Yeah.
we let the cat out of the bag.
We let the cat out of the bag on that one.
Yeah,
DJ
so-
Ongala has actually been quoted as saying, and he's from California, and he said when he was recruited, he came here one day and was like amazed that all these people come out of the woodwork. You know, they're tailgating. That town becomes the second largest town in South Carolina just by pure fans that come.
Right.
And it just blew his mind. He goes like, this is why I want to play.
Well, it's funny when we were talking to Tommy, he said that very thing. He was like, people in the South, and Sean said this.
Yeah.
People outside of the Southeast don't realize how big college football is in the Southeast. Like, yeah, we've got USC, Southern Cal, and UCLA in California, but it's nothing like the scene in college football town in the South, you know?
Right.
And that's true.
It's kind of sort of. You ever see the movie Leatherheads?
Of course.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of how it all started. I mean it's
Yeah.
just, you know,
That's
we didn't
awesome.
have professional football here, so we basically did it ourselves.
Yeah, that's another thing I noticed down here. I'm originally from Michigan.
Okay.
And everybody here, if they like the NFL, their NFL teams are very sporadic, right? Like you'll have a Dolphins fan, you'll have, you know, a 49ers fan, you'll have a Cowboys fan.
Forever it was the Falcons before Carolina ever got here,
Yeah.
and then when Carolina got here, they ran out of Death Valley.
Well, that's because we don't have ties. To
That's
those
what I'm-
teams.
that's
So
what
it's
I'm
like,
saying.
I like the Vikings.
Right.
So like
Exactly.
Your point in case is like, so why would I like the Vikings? Where my family's from Vikings, like not Vikings, from Minnesota. So it's like, well,
And
we
growing up-
we don't have a team around here. So
Right,
it's like,
right.
Well, who's my family? Like, where are they from?
That's right. And growing up, you know, the early 2000 Maddens, you have Randy Moss on there. So, of course, you're going to be the Vikings every time. Yeah. That's how I pick my favorite FIFA teams, dude.
Man.
It's just like.
You just don't go in there and make your
Yeah.
own player, like little David
Okay,
Carter,
so I
and,
was
like,
just
roll
telling
up
you.
all his stuff.
I was just telling everybody I just got a PS4 10 years later. And even though the PS5 is out, they're impossible to get. So I got this PS4. My little 4-year-old is enamored by it. And he's hockey obsessed. He's obsessed with hockey. And so we downloaded NHL 22. And the first thing we did was create his character.
Nice.
And that's all he wants to do now is every time I come home from work, let's go play with my character. And he's like all into it because after the game, you know, you have like these little interviews. And he's like, what are they saying? Because you got to read it on the screen. It's pretty fun.
That's
But
awesome.
yes, case in point, we create characters. All right, buddy. So you're at Clemson. Talk about you had to sit out. Did you redshirt a year or
I
you
sat
walked
out.
on?
No.
You sat on or sat out? I'm sorry.
I sat out. I had to go to Tri-County. So I wasn't smart enough to get into Clemson. And so I go to camp and balled out, and they were basically like, well, I have to tell you the backstory. I saw a question on one of these sheets that said, what is your biggest failure? And
Sure. Yeah.
that was part of it. So we'll answer that question. You got to ask me what it is.
No, it's fine, dude. What's your biggest failure? Go for it.
So my senior year, I was a jerk, if you will, and on the other side of me just working really hard, I became a jock in high school, and so like this arrogant 18-year-old, 17-year-old kid who just wants to play football and flirt with girls.
Sure.
And so became a jock real quick, and I was recruited by Clemson, went up to camp, and they were telling me that all I needed to get an offer was some film. Because I went to camp, I like balled out. Like, I'm talking about like unreal. And they were like, dude, we're taking 2 receivers this year. You're going to be one of the 2. Like, you just got to prove that you can play football with pads on. And so I was like, this was before our season started, our junior year. And I was like, done deal. So we go back, and from there, my mind kind of shifted from like winning and just like stats.
Mhm.
And so it wasn't necessarily about Lexington football anymore. It wasn't about winning or like the team aspect of it. It was like, dude, just give me the ball so I can prove to these people I can play football with pads on.
Mm-hmm.
And so after our first game, the coaches, so there's like rules that when college coaches can come see high school players,
Right.
like deadline or like not deadlines, but like windows in
Sure.
the season.
Yeah.
Well, on the first day, Coach Jeff Scott, the receiver coach at Clemson at the time, came and got me out of class. And was like, this was Friday morning. And he said, I'm coming to your game tonight. And if whoever the coach sees on that first day, that's a big deal. And so I was like, dude, this dude got me out of class. He could have went all around the country to get someone out of class on this day. And he got me out of class. And so from there on, I was like, dude, you got to get me the ball tonight. Like, and we're playing a good team. The DB that was guarding me was committed to Wofford. And so this dude was really good. And I was like, well, this is about to be a show. And we just ran it down their throat the entire game. Like, they were not stopping the ball.
Wow.
We ended up winning. And we just ran it down their throat. I got 2 passes thrown at me, caught one. So I went 1 for 2. Clemson's coach is watching me. And we won, and we go back to the locker room. Everybody's like jumping up and down like we just won, dancing, and I'm pissed.
Yeah.
And you know it. Like you know that is a selfish player right there because he's the only one mad.
Right.
Like, why is he mad right now?
Yeah.
Just won our first game.
Oh,
Or one of the two. And the next practice, like, no one said anything about it. The next practice, we were getting chewed out, and my coach looked at me. We were all in a huddle on our knees, on a knee, and looked at me and said, "You're one of the most selfish players on this team, and like, you only care about yourself. You only care about Clemson football. Like, you just want what's best for you." And I got up and walked off the field, and I just kept walking. Walked all the way to the locker room, took my pads off, and got suspended for the next game. And I was like, well, if they just don't find out about it, the Clemson doesn't find out about it, we'll be all right.
Oh, man.
And so I was like, I didn't want them to find out, and I hope they didn't. But every game, Coach Jeff Scott would send me a text message and say, good luck. And the game I was suspended, he didn't send it.
Oh,
and
no.
I said, no. And so from there on, I stopped getting recruited by Clemson. So that's why I was a walk-on. I didn't necessarily get that offer this year, that year. So he ended up offering 3 other guys. And I think that was, I wouldn't say my biggest failure, but when it comes to like the sports and like shaping who I am today, that was a massive part because from there on, after there, I ended up going to church. So I ended up giving my life to the Lord after that. Just because I was at rock bottom,
Right.
in a sense. I was like, well, this was my dream. This was like the end all be all. I wanted to play in the NFL. This was going to be the first step to that dream coming true. And now that's not only, like, it was like the dream is shattered. Like, there's no way.
So it was a wake-up call for you.
Yeah, a huge wake-up call. So it was like, there's no way I'm going to Clemson now.
Wow.
And started going to church.
So did you grow up going to church,
I
or
did
was
not, no.
okay? So this was on your own accord. It wasn't like your parents were like, "You need to get in church."
Yeah. So, and we had a church in the area that was like, it's called, I go there now, New Spring.
Yeah.
And so we had this a youth ministry. So I started going there with some friends.
So I know we're going to get into this question, but so you're at rock bottom.
Yeah.
You're not going to Clemson now. You're not being recruited by them.
Nope.
And you take it upon yourself to just start going to church. Mm-hmm. What led you to do that?
I believe, so there was it was called Fuse at the time.
Right.
It was like our youth ministry.
Yeah.
And
I literally live across the street from New Spring.
okay, cool.
The Anderson campus.
Yeah, cool. So we went there to socialize.
Yeah.
And so I never really went because I didn't really think it was all that great to go to church to socialize in the first place. And so once I was at rock bottom, it was like, okay, now I think that before the whole incident, I had been going like a few times. So I had been a couple times, and then I had gone after the incident, and that's when everything kind of like hit me. Like, I remember being at Fuse that one night and like actually being tuned in to like the message and to worship, and I was like, wow, like something does need to change in my life.
Sure.
And it was actually like the first time like I felt convicted about things. And so from there on, I started going more and more, and it wasn't like a snap of the fingers. Like, this dude's a godly young guy now. It took time, it took years. And so, but I started going, and I started going to Sunday church, and I started like getting involved, and like had some people in my life like who were speaking into my life and the upbringing of it. And so I started just growing in a sense. And so that was my biggest failure because it led me to that. And so then you fast forward, I'm getting all these offers now by smaller schools, like schools I didn't necessarily want to go to ever. And that's when I kind of started praying. I was like, hey, like, Lord, I want to be a Tiger. And if you read the Bible, I was reading the Bible, and I was like, you read passages like, hey, the Lord gives you the desires of your heart, Right. And I wasn't using those, like, I wasn't like flipping those to like my own like interpretation. I was like, I want what the Lord wants for my life, but I was really praying that the Lord would want Clemson football for my life.
Right. Yeah.
And so they were like pure thoughts. I was just like begging for it, and so I remember another camp. So I go through my junior year and come up on my senior year, and this is when I get invited to another Clemson camp and go up there, and I ball out again. Like, this is better than the junior year. And they're like, hey, we have offered 3 guys already, and we're only taking 3. So it moved from like 2 to 3, which was good. And they said, if we've offered 2 of them have committed already, Cornell Powell and TJ Chase. And if we've offered DeAndre Overton, and if he comes, then we're going to have to offer you a preferred walk-on. If he doesn't, then you can offer. And so I waited for this guy to sign for the longest time. It was like between him, it was like Clemson and Tennessee, I believe. And he wouldn't sign. And I was like, dude, this dude's stressing me out. And that's when I went to a Georgia Tech game with my mom, and Coach Jeff Scott brought me into his office after the game and said, yeah, he has been silently committed like the whole time. And I was like, it was like just gut wrenching.
Right.
Basically, they could have told you that.
He could have told me that a long time ago, but they couldn't, because it was like just between him and the coach. And so that happened, and then from there, I think I had like got that far in life. Like, I had been to Clemson so many times, done so many recruiting visits. Like, I have built these relationships with these coaches as a high school kid. I have been on their like Sports Illustrated page, on the recruiting page. Like, all these things have happened, and I couldn't like not see what the end of the story had been. Like, I've almost like touched the glory of it all.
Right.
And there's no way that I couldn't like do whatever like necessary to make this happen. And so I got the preferred walk-on. Coach Sweeney comes up to me and says, hey, you remind me of myself in high school and college. And at that point I was like, dude, I'm in. Like, I'm 100% committed. Like, I'm going to do this. And I so go back to school. And now this is the point where I was like, well, I have never taken school seriously because I thought I was going to get a full ride to a school.
Oh, man, yeah.
So, dude, I coasted. I coasted into my senior year, and at that point, it was a little bit too late. And then I go to the SAT and bomb it. I mean, I've never studied for a test at this point. Like, I am like literally, hey, all I need is like a 2.7 GPA, I'm going to get a full scholarship to play at some school. And then, like, I'm going to go to the NFL, and it's going to be all good. Like, this was literally the narrative that I had, like, built in my mind.
Right.
And no one said it was a dumb idea. Like, no one said. Like,
no. You really should think something up. You can't. Jayson, let me sit you down. You have to be special.
Well, they always say if you have a plan B, then you're not fully committed to plan A, right?
Yeah.
So, I'm getting it from you that you had no plan B.
No plan B.
You wouldn't. We weren't going back to play baseball.
No.
We weren't.
Like, no. And so I remember buying. This is a funny story. I remember buying the study guide to the SAT, like this big book, and I remember flipping through the pages, and I was like,
"Do they weigh the SAT as much as they used to?
Do they weigh it?
Oh,
I mean, is it really that big of a? Like, I remember.
Oh, you mean as far as getting into
getting
college?
in? Like, I've read where a lot of colleges are actually getting away from doing that now.
I don't know. When I went to
high school.
college, we had to take it.
Trust me, I had
Yeah.
to take it. Didn't do good.
Anyway, you tell us about your story.
Yes, I want to hear this funny story.
So I buy the book, and I remember flipping. I was like, I'm doing whatever it takes to get into Clemson. I'm gonna pass this SAT. And I remember flipping the first chapter. I don't even know what it was about, but I literally flipped like 3 pages, and I said, like, to hell with this, man. Like, there's no way I could do this. They sent me the study guide's like what, a whole like a
Oh yeah,
1,000 pages.
It's
looks
huge.
like.
I remember I just went to the library and got like last year's copy for free. So there you go.
I was
I
like,
took
dude,
the
there's no way.
PSAT.
Oh yeah.
Everybody took the
And
PSAT.
and I was like, okay, it's gonna be great. And then I took the SAT, and I was like, screw me.
So so I bought the book, and I was like, no, can't happen. And they had told me that if I couldn't get into Clemson, like with my grades, like to the standard of like Clemson normally is like holding students to, then Clemson gets this thing called a silver bullet, which allows a certain athlete who is preferred walk-on to not necessarily get doesn't have to meet those standards as a normal like walk-on or student would have to meet.
Mm-hmm.
So I got the silver bullet, and
This had to happen.
this had to happen.
That sounds
I got the
unbelievable.
silver bullet. They were like, dude, you only have to make this on the SAT now. Like this GPA, not this, but this.
Well, were you more nervous going into like this SAT test than anything else in your entire life leading up to that?
Oh yeah, for sure. And so they said, hey, dude, you just gotta make this. And it was
Yeah.
I think it was like 1,000, like which is like so low to get into Clemson.
Yeah.
Like those people are like, I don't even know what the standard is, but it's not 1,000.
Like
Sure.
it's like 1,200.
Yeah, it's like 1,200. They
Yeah.
were like, I think it was a 900. They said you just got to make 900 on the SAT or something.
In Michigan, we had the ACT, so it was a little different. But
Yeah, so they're saying, hey, dude, just get this, and it's like an average number, man. And I remember not being able to make that number. I took it like 2 or 3 times after that, and I just couldn't do it. And at that point, it was like, well, didn't make the silver bullet. So now we're gonna go. I have the choice now to either accept these other offers, full rides, to go play football at these smaller schools, or to not go to Clemson, but to now go to Tri-County and then try to still get into Clemson. So I remember one day, my senior year, Coastal comes to my high school and says, hey, we want to offer you a scholarship only if you commit. Like, you got to commit, and like now. So basically, like, ultimatum, like, if you don't go to Clemson, like, commit now, we'll offer you a scholarship. So basically, I had to commit before they gave me the scholarship. And I literally was like, dude, I'm going to Clemson.
oh man.
So people like
Take your scholarship. You're I'm too good for you.
What were your parents saying at this point?
dude. Everybody was against this. Like, I'm talking about everybody, as you should.
Right.
I'm 17 years old at this point, like 18 maybe, and dude, if any 18-year-old kid is like saying this stuff, it's like, dude, what are you doing?
Mm-hmm.
Like, you have an App State offer, like, right on the table. Like, just accept that. Like, no college debt. Like, you're playing at a really good school.
Yeah.
And for some reason, there's something in my mind that I was like, it's not good enough. It's not good enough. And so I went to Tri-County for a year, and that's when they won the national championship for that first time with Deshaun. And I had to sit out, and like, people were not for this. Like, I was living like on the edge. Like, what is Jayson Hopper? Like, where's his story gonna like actually like end up? And it took a while for me to like actually like get people to like trust me. I wasn't necessarily the wisest, but I was like, I pretty much brought the Lord into. At this point, I've been going to church, and that my senior year, I was like falling like hard after the Lord, like reading my Bible all the time. And so not only was this me, I felt like this was like being led by the Spirit in a sense. And so I was like, this isn't necessarily the plan that Jayson Hopper has written up. Like, this is where God wants me to do as well.
Mhm.
And I was telling people that.
I have a question about that real quick. What were your parents thinking about, not so much the whole football thing, but you starting going to church,
Mm-hmm.
committing your life to Christ. What did that have an impact on their life at all?
Oh, for sure. Not like in a matter of seconds, but it took time. Like
Mm-hmm.
it took, I'd say, a year for my family to also get involved into it. And it took a year for them to actually understand, like, this has been like, I kind of committed to like Clemson as like a walk on in a sense. Like I told them I was coming at that camp before the season. So I was like telling people, hey, like, I'm not going to go to Clemson on a full ride. Like, so that whole year I had like prepared and been telling parents and my parents and friends, like, hey, like whatever scholarships come after this, like I'm going to Clemson and I'm going to pay for school just because I think it's worth it. And I'm willing to pay the debt that I have after 4 years because I think that the experience of playing football at Clemson is worth that amount of change.
That's amazing.
And so I was telling people that, and at 18 years old, I was telling people that. And I was like, I'm okay with paying that debt, you know? And so I ended up going, sat out a year.
So what did you do when you were at Tri-County Tech? They don't allow you to practice with the football team when you're at Tri-County Tech.
No, they don't.
So are you out running routes by yourself? Are you like calling your friends and being like, can you throw me some routes and stuff? Or
They didn't have a football team at Tri-County?
no,
No, they don't.
Isn't like a JUCO
they
team
have like
or anything
a
like
they
that?
have like a
No.
soccer team.
Okay.
That's about it.
I don't even know they had a soccer team.
They used to.
Yeah, so that's when I did two things. I studied for the first time in a long time. It was like the first time I was actually passionate about
Little
school.
Sally wasn't writing your notes for you or
No,
anything like
no,
that.
And I remember studying my butt off completely, and that's when I first started CrossFit. So I had only known training in a gym at the high school in high school, and so now I'm not even close to home, and so now I have to train on my own. I have to find out where to train, and then two, I have to figure out where to run routes. And so I didn't have a quarterback because I didn't know anybody up here, and I didn't have a gym. So those are the two things I kind of like searched after. I did not have a quarterback. I went out every single day and I ran routes without a ball, and just ran routes for 2 hours or so a day.
Wow.
And because there was like a little soccer field right next to my apartment I lived in Clemson, and every day I would just run routes, and then I'd go work out in the class for an hour at CrossFit. And so I did my training. I got stronger. I did all that stuff in the CrossFit gym, and then ran routes every day.
And
So-
Trey Wyndham.
Had you heard of?
Yeah, exactly.
Did you know what CrossFit was before you were there? Or
No,
So how did you walk into?
actually,
CrossFit?
I did. One of my mentors in high school did CrossFit, and I had no idea what it was. And he was like, "Hey, dude, come get a workout with me come get a workout with me." And I was like, "All right, like you're gonna come to CrossFit." And I was like, "Don't even know what that is, but sure." So I get there. I'm like, "Dude, I'm gonna kick this dude's butt." And I remember it was double unders and kettlebell swings and sit-ups.
Okay.
I don't even know the reps. I don't know how long the time domain or what this was. And this dude smoked me because I couldn't do double unders.
Yeah, of course.
And I had to do more reps because I was doing single unders, and he smoked me because of that. And he hangs that over my head to this day. Like, I'm 1-0 against you.
There you go.
And so he ends up doing that, and I didn't think much of it. Like, nothing about that workout was like, dude, I'm craving CrossFit out now. It just so happened to be after I graduated, I came up to Clemson, and I typed in like gyms in the area, and I didn't want to go to Gold's or something. And so I saw CrossFit, and I said, well, we'll give this another shot. Ended up meeting Trey there.
Yeah.
And
Because him and his wife originally owned CrossFit Clemson.
Yeah.
Before they sold it. Yeah, and they moved.
Yeah.
Trey's a good man. He's a really nice guy. I knew him through my wife and his wife because they are both in the medical field. So.
Oh, cool. So Trey kind of like brought me under his wing in a sense. So I saw him working out all the time, and I was like, dude, I want to be like really good. At this point, like I go there, I'm like hanging out in the class, like things are getting pretty competitive. I didn't know this was like a competitive like lifestyle.
What are you doing? I'm exercising for time.
Right.
And so I'm like losing, and I hate losing more than I love winning. And so I'm getting beat by random folks. And
Right.
so like older guys that are like, I would look at as a arrogant 19-year-old and say, you're not going to beat me in this.
Right.
And I'm getting beat. I'm weak. I don't have any form. I can't snatch. Can't clean and jerk. No one taught me that. It was all like back squat and deadlifts and football. And something just kept coming. I didn't play football, so I had a lot of free time. You know, I ran routes every day. I worked out every day. And so this is the time like I'm getting into watching the movies now. And so now I'm seeing CrossFit movies and watching movies and figuring out who Matt Fraser is and seeing all this stuff. Now I'm like, well, I want to do that. And not necessarily like I'm going to do that, but like that would be a cool experience to do that. But it wasn't necessarily a priority. I didn't like make it like this is what we're going to go do, because I intended on playing football and going to the NFL.
This is 2018?
2018.
Okay.
Yep. And so the whole year was dedicated to CrossFit, but I always thought it would be cool to that'd be cool to go to the CrossFit games and compete to be one of the fittest men on earth.
Like after your football career kind of thing.
It wasn't even that. It was never like a after this or that. It was like, that'd be just a cool experience.
Sure.
But
yeah.
that's never going to happen because we're going to the NFL.
Right.
And so.
All right. So you do CrossFit for a year. You do Tri-County Tech for a year. You go to Clemson. It lasted 1 year. What happened?
Lasted 1 year. I get there, and it was like a lifestyle change, honestly. In that time, I knew in that year off, I wanted to go to ministry. I felt that call to ministry. At this point, I was like going to church, involved in church, doing CrossFit and running routes. I was like, and studying. That was like the only thing I did, and didn't have a girlfriend, like nothing. And in that time, I was like, well, at the end, I knew football was going to end at some point in my life. Whenever that ends, I'm going to go be a pastor. And so I did a lot of reading, and just got hooked on reading books. And all I did that was another aspect and thing that I brought into my lifestyle, was like I just read a lot as well. And so then I finally make it to football, and it's like all that is like taken out. Like you don't have time to read, you don't have time to do CrossFit, you don't have time to even like work extra hard, because like this is already a responsibility for you.
Right.
And so it was like, you wake up, you go work out at 5 a.m. in the morning, you get ready, we're going to practice, we're watching film, like you going to class, like it was just like bam, 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 bam. You didn't have time to hang out with friends, you didn't have time to socialize, you didn't have time to do whatever you wanted to do. And for some reason, this took a toll on me. Football for me had always been, one, enjoyable, but two, I always wanted to be good on my own will, if you will. Like, I'm going to make sure I'm the last one to leave because I want to. And so I would make sure that I'm putting in the extra work. And so then I get to Clemson, and we go from like, I'm there at like 5 o'clock and I'm leaving at 9 p.m. And after all that time, it's like, I don't necessarily want to be the last one to leave anymore.
Right.
I want to go home.
It kind of took the fire out of you.
Yeah, it took the fire, because it was like, this is not only like, this is expected out of you now. Like,
it's a job. I mean,
it's a job. Like everybody's staying after practice and catching footballs at the jug now.
You're not common anymore.
Yeah, I'm not the guy that's willing to do the most anymore.
Right.
Like I don't want to go in extra early to watch film. Like any seconds that I can get out of this facility, like I want those.
Right.
And so that over a year kind of just took away the desire for football. And I didn't want to be there. I didn't want to have to go through like practice. I didn't, just having to be there and being forced to be there kind of like just took away that desire and love for the game.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And so play for a year, and a lot of it is business. Obviously I wasn't playing, and I wasn't So I wasn't playing. I wasn't enjoying it, and I was paying for it. Like I wasn't getting. I was paying for this. And so now the question,
I'm gonna pay you to let me play football.
So now the question that I had thought about in high school was like, okay, like in that moment, I was convinced that I thought it was worth it to play here, and then I'm getting forced to ask that same question while I'm there. Okay, like, hey, I'm still paying for this. Like, thousands and thousands of dollars. This is my freshman year.
Right.
We have 4 more of these. Like, are you sure? And I could never get a yes answer. And so at that point, it was like, okay, well, write down the things that you know you want to do. Like the pros and cons of like stopping.
And this is just you by yourself having this conversation.
Yeah.
Like you're not going and asking your parents. You're not asking your best friends. This is literally going on in your mind the whole time.
Yeah, because at this point it was like, well, you were an idiot for going to Clemson. Now you're an idiot for leaving.
Wow, man.
And so now, yeah, you don't want to go. I didn't go to my parents because now they're gonna think I was crazy. Like you made it here. Like this is like the dream. Like you're in the national championship team. You know, like you can't just leave. Like all my friends would say the same thing. And so at that point it was like this stuff is happening with a select. There was probably a select few of like pastors and guys like I had to go to and like say like, am I stupid for this? Like, no. Like tell me like I'm like a soundboard. And so.
Yeah, like straight up tell me what you think. Don't tell me what I want to hear kind of thing.
Yeah. And so I did that, and I ended up quitting. I was only there to play football. Like, I wasn't there to necessarily get a degree.
Right.
So when I quit football, it was to also drop out of Clemson. And so I remember getting a job at a coffee shop in Clemson. At that point, it was, okay, well, now you're not going to play football. You're not going to go to the NFL. What are you going to do? And the 2 things I had thought about was, well, I was going to be a pastor. And so I enrolled in a online seminary and just went and made coffee and worked. I got back into CrossFit. And so at that point, it was like a year of I'm going to I'm going to be a barista, which had never happened before.
Oh my God. That's hilarious.
I'm a barista at this local coffee shop.
At least you had a lot to talk about with Matt Fraser over the last 6 months then.
Yeah,
you knew all about coffee.
So I'm going to be a barista.
Yeah.
I'm going to work out, and I'm going to like just read and do school online.
Right.
So then I don't even know what question I'm answering.
We're not even going
following
off.
that anymore.
I haven't looked at this one time.
We're way off script, which is fine.
Yeah, we always get way off script. It's no problem.
So what did your parents think? Like when you had to like literally walk to them and say, all right, things have changed. This is what I'm going to do now.
Yeah. There was a part of them that was sad for sure. Like you made it this far. Like you're heading into the right direction. Like don't mess this up, if you will. And then there was the other part of like, hey, like you could do whatever you want.
Right.
Not in the sense of like negative, like you could do whatever you want, like just leave, but like, hey, like whatever you do, you're going to be successful.
Right.
So like we trust that you're hearing from the Lord correctly, and that this is a wise move.
So they were supportive.
Yeah.
That's great.
But there were some like moments where they were like trying to talk me into not doing it for sure.
All right. So we're a barista. We're in seminary school, and we're doing CrossFit.
Yeah,
so
I'm at Electric City at this point.
You're at Electric City.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay, cool. I never knew you went there.
Yep.
So you're at Electric City. At what point were you were like, all right, I'm going to classes. I'm getting better. I kind of want to take this to the next level, take my training to the next level.
I was working out with Allison and Colin every day.
Mm-hmm.
And they were beating me. Obviously, Allison was running over me and everything. And I had at that age and that season of life was a motor. And I liked to hurt. And I've always liked to hurt, like whether it was running stadiums, like gassers, like 120s on the football field, like I wanted to win.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to make sure, like I didn't care about how much pain that had tagged to it. I was willing to like endure it. And so one of the things that I brought into training with Allison was this motor, and she had a motor. And so like it would take me to like another level.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously I wasn't like the strongest. Like I had to learn all my lifts. Like I wasn't snatching over 185. I couldn't do a ring muscle up. Like couldn't do a number of things. Couldn't even walk on my hands. And I would.
This is still 2018.
Yeah, 2018.
Wow, that's not that long ago. It doesn't seem like it was that
This
long.
was when I was like, okay, like I'm gonna train hard.
Yeah.
And this is when Colin started telling me like, hey, you can be really good in this sport. And I started believing him. So I was like, all right, I'll just keep doing what I'm doing. At that point in life, I only liked what I was good at. So I was like, let's do some wall balls. Let's do some rowing. Let's do some cardio. Like, let's do that. Like I wasn't wanting to like do like hard sessions of like weakness stuff. And so end up doing that. And yeah, so I started getting averagely better than I was. Because I was taking it a lot more seriously. So instead of being in the class, I was there for like 2 hours now. And then that's when I moved. So after like a year or so, I did the open there. And I moved back home.
Okay.
I was paying for my rent. And I was like, well, I'm using my money to pay for this house. Like, why would I do that when I can go home and live with my mom?
Right.
And so I did that. Went back home. And that's when I got plugged in with Carolina CrossFit. And it was like another level of thing. They had like this like comp train group, like all this stuff, a bunch of athletes, a bunch of them. You want to say something?
No, I'm just thinking of the guy the original owner of it.
Steve?
Steve. God
Steve.
bless him. I love Steve. He's great, but he's a wild man.
Yeah. So he was there when I showed up. And
Nice.
so he was in his like training days. Like,
Yeah.
I'm going to go to the CrossFit Games. And so that's when everybody was like, they were trying to take 2 teams to the CrossFit Games.
Yeah.
And so they had gone to regionals 1 year. There was another team that was like, they were trying to make it. This is when Jared Shaw was like leading the comp train. There was a bunch of athletes back there, older than me. And I remember going in there thinking I'm like a bad dude. Like I got potential. Like I'm the next man up, you know?
Yeah.
And I go in there and I can't beat any of them. Like they're like crushing me. Like they're really good. And I remember doing row intervals and Jared Shaw was behind me. And I don't know what it was about these row intervals, but he came up to me after and said, dude, you can go to the CrossFit Games. And I was like, I know I can. No, he was like, no, you really can. Like your row intervals, you're like your splits. And I'm like, how is my split time going to take me to the CrossFit Game?
Yeah.
But for some reason it revealed to him like the potential of like getting better at like everything else. Because he saw my capacity, I guess, in those row intervals. And from there on, I stayed there for like 2 years and just got better and better and better. And from there, I qualified. This is when I qualified for 2 sanctionals right before the COVID. And yeah, so it was Atlas Games in Canada and then the Asbury Games in New Jersey. Yeah, they both got canceled.
What was your first CrossFit competition?
I did one in Charleston. I forgot the name of it.
Integrity's Revenge?
No. It starts with S.
Salt Games?
No. Sacred Pines.
I don't know.
I never heard that one.
It was like a local gym. It wasn't nothing big. I came in 3rd, but it was like with a guy who was like trying to go to regionals, and so I was like, dude, his name's like Cow or something. Cow or I don't know. But he was like really big when I was like coming up. And so I was like, dude, like I just want to beat him. He smoked me. Like there was no way I was gonna.
How did you do at the the Freedom Games the first year in Greenwood? Because I remember you there. I remember you being there.
We did it on team.
Yeah.
We came in 2nd.
Okay.
Yep. So that was my first one, and then the Freedom Games was my 2nd, and then I did another one with Allison at Carolina CrossFit. We won.
Nice.
So we all know the story that you went to the Atlas Games. It got canceled during your briefing.
Yep.
Talk about that. Was that like a huge letdown, or was that just like, all right, I mean, this happened to everybody. We're just going to go back to the drawing board and keep going?
It was a letdown. I remember going back to my Airbnb and crying.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So it was a huge letdown.
Yeah, it was. Because it was like a time where I was like ready to like not only see where I measured up. Like this has been countless years, like 3 or 4. I say countless.
Yeah.
3 or 4 years of like training.
Right.
And I'd never been put to the test against like serious level athletes, except the 2 at the CrossFit competition. But that was like when I first got to Columbia. And so this is like 2 years later. I'm now ready after 2 years of training and like being dialed in on a lot of weaknesses. This is like my time to like see where I measure up. So there was like guys like Cedric Lapointe there,
Right.
and Samuel Corrier, and
Samuel
Samuel.
Cornway.
Jeffrey Adler was
Adler,
there. So like,
yeah.
and it was in Canada. So like all these really big name Canadian guys were there, and I was like, this is what we're like. A part of me was like, I'm for some reason really think I'm gonna win, and then there was a part of me that was like, you're just use this as like a learning experience, like see where you measure up. And it got canceled, and it was like the first time, because I was like, this is the competition that stands in the way of me going to the CrossFit Games. And so these guys are the people who stand in the way of my dream. And so once it got canceled, I think that was the thing that like hurt the worst. So like I have to go a whole another year before I get this opportunity again.
Hey guys, we're going to take a break to thank our sponsors for today's episode. We're going to start off with CrossFit Greer. If you're living in the Greer area and are interested in getting started in CrossFit, go ahead and look up CrossFit Greer. Jen and Reagan Green are the owners there. If you mention the Apogee Podcast to them, they will give you 10% off your first month's membership fees.
I would also like to thank Blitz Belts and Chris Kane for their continued support of the show. So be sure to use their 15% off coupon code at checkout. That's Apogee, all caps. That gets you, the listener, 15% off at checkout at Blitz Belts on your custom order. I want to thank GoTape for being our new sponsor. GoTape has committed its brand to providing the best in athletic tape. They are the standard for CrossFit tape, scary sticky. Now they are providing the best in KT tape. So at checkout, be sure to get your 25% off your wholesale purchase. Use the coupon code Apogee at checkout.
Finally, if you guys would like to become an invested friend of the show and are interested in supporting the show directly, go to anchor.fm/Apogee Podcast and click on the support tab. We love bringing you guys awesome content each week, so be sure to subscribe to the podcast, drop a review, and let us know how we're doing. So, in the mix of all of this, at some point you met your wife. When did that happen?
I met my wife in high school.
Okay, but you said you weren't dating anybody when you were at Tri-County. So did you guys start dating at what point?
So I was a jerk, as I said.
Yeah.
And we had an on and off relationship. It was entirely my fault. When we were off, it was because I was a jerk. And I would, I had no business being with her in the first place. Like all our friends were like, dude, like you don't need to be with this man. Or like, I wasn't even a man, this boy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And for some reason, like we were really close, and dude, I was a jerk. If we were on a podcast, I'd say I was a lot more other names, but dude, just say I was a jerk. But
right.
Think way farther.
We got you.
And
Well, she saw something in you, so I mean, to her credit.
yeah. So
Yeah.
Granted, I was trying to follow the Lord, and she was a Christian, and so I tried to do my best, but there was like I said, I didn't pop out and like this godly young guy. Like,
oh yeah,
I had so much baggage, bringing like into high school, and I was very prideful. There was a lot of things that just needed to change that just didn't change in the twinkling of an eye. And so I made a lot of mistakes, and I regret them. And then for some reason, I knew I'm an extremist, by the way, if you haven't realized that.
I've realized that. Yeah, it's all or nothing.
It's all or nothing.
Yeah.
And so
I like it.
So alongside with I'm going to do all these crazy things, I'm going to marry this girl in high school. Not marry her in high school. I was telling myself and her that I was going to marry her. Like, you are going to be my wife one day. And like, it wasn't freaking her out. I thought we were in love. I was telling her I loved her.
You're right.
Like, it's high school love. Like,
of course,
we're going to be together forever. And so we kept going on and off, back and forth. I was an idiot. And then I remember breaking her heart one time, like towards the end of my like senior year. And for some reason I saw it in her eyes, and it was like, we're done forever. Mm-hmm. And it hit me in a certain way of like, okay, I'm like no longer in control of like manipulating like her feelings to get what I want. And so I remember she like completely like stopped talking to me, and it was like another like moment in my life where it was like, you got to figure like your life out if you want like this to work. And so that's when I said, okay, like, I'm not going to date another girl. I'm going to work on myself, and get my life right. And so that's when I just started focusing on football and whatnot, and my relationship with the Lord. And then I knew she was going to go to Clemson, and I was like, well, this is the plan.
This works out.
I said, I'm a year older than her. And so I was telling myself that I'm going to go to Clemson. I'm going to take a year off of dating, not talk to one single girl. And once she gets to Clemson, I'm going to be a new man waiting.
The knight in shining armor.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so I did just that. Like, when I said I didn't talk to girls, like, obviously I talked to them verbally, but like, I did not like try to like find a girlfriend, did not go on any dates. Like, this was like hardcore. Like, I'm going to
straight edge for a year.
Yeah, straight edge for a year.
Nope. I can't look at you. I'm averting my eyes.
Like, it's literally like, I'm gonna focus on football and CrossFit and my own life, and then I know that she is coming up here. Like, she's coming up here. Her sister was already there, and so I was like, I know she's gonna come to Clemson, and she's not going to have any way around me when she sees me as a godly young man playing football.
That's right. You had it all planned out.
I had it all planned out.
That's
Long story short, she didn't come to Clemson.
Oh, my gosh.
She got accepted, and she didn't want to go to college. And I was like, no way. Like, I had been putting in the work for a year.
That's crazy. I mean, Clemson's not an easy school to get into either. So obviously she had the brains to go.
Yeah,
so
she's very smart. Very smart.
Wow.
Family.
Okay.
A very smart family. And then she didn't come, but we had a lot of mutual friends, and so she had heard from a lot of people that, hey, like, Jason's like waiting on you, like, because I had told all my friends, like, I wanted everybody to like. So my plan was, I know when I get into Clemson, like, the temptations are going to be extremely real. Like, when I'm saying in high school about like waiting on you, like, that thing's going to be like tested to the limit when I get to Clemson. And so I said, hey, my plan was, I'm going to tell everybody that I know, all my friends, that I'm waiting on this girl to get to Clemson. And so then if I get tempted, or like starting, like, I'm halfway in, like 6 months into this plan, I'm like, I don't think it's going well enough. Since I had told you, you're going to say, well, what happened to your plan? And I'm not going to have any way around it.
That's right. You're smarter than you think.
And so I had told everybody, I said, hey, dude, like, as a very motivated, like, passionate moment, I said, hey, like, if I ever get off track of this, like, you are going to tell me to get back on track. Yeah. Like, you're not going to let me do anything else.
So you had your own safety guard,
Yeah, I do. Everybody. I told everybody.
That's awesome, dude.
I told the girls that I thought were good looking. I was like, hey, I'm waiting on somebody.
I'm waiting on somebody.
Sorry.
And
it's like they try to set you up on a, he's a really nice guy. When you meet him, sorry, it's not going to work out. I'm waiting on somebody.
So I ended up writing her a book.
You wrote her a book?
Of our whole story. I mean, we have years of experience.
That's awesome, man.
Not experience, memories. And I ended up writing her a book of our entire story from like the day I met her all the way up until like that moment. And I had been writing letters to her. I was like, dude, I was like all in, dude. I was like, dude, I'm marrying this. I literally told her. So we didn't talk. I remember telling all of her friends, like, you need to send her this message. Like, if I'm not marrying her, then I'm not getting married.
Wow.
And so I went like all in, and we were going to end up going into the same church, and she came up we had something going on in Anderson at New Spring, Anderson, and she had come up from Columbia. And I was like, that's when I'm going to give her this book. I hadn't talked to her for a year, and I had her whole story.
So when you say book, was this like classic, like loose leaf, handwritten? Like,
No, he went like to a craft store. He went to a craft store.
How
he
was
had like construction
what
paper,
kind of book
like
is
the
this?
whole heart.
Yeah, exactly. Did you
like
cut out like
the
old
stick
pictures,
behind,
old pictures of yourself?
glue?
I had went on a Word document and started just typing.
So you're gonna print it out for her?
I did print it out.
Okay,
for her.
gotcha.
It was,
He went through like
it was
keepsake.com.
This is amazing.
It was 100 pages, and
I really hope Savan hears this.
I'll send it to him. It was double line, so it wasn't like single line. It was like 30,000 letters or 30,000 words. And so it was like, so I tried to, the only way I could like equal it out or like try to help you best understand how big it was I looked up, I know it wasn't as big as like a regular book. And so I was like, well, what else could be this like long? And so I looked up how many words were in the Gospels.
I knew you were going to say that.
So I was like, I had wrote a book the size of the Gospel of Luke.
Good.
It was like the size of the Gospel of Luke to Grace Ann. And I had wrote it on a Word document, printed it all out, had all the letters that I had been writing in that year, and I had a bunch of pictures from like the past, and I just put it all together. And it was like super overwhelming when I gave it to her, but it was like a bomb. It was like, there's no way that you can't say like no, essentially, to this. And so when I gave it to her, that's when we made out right there. It had been like years, you know.
So you're like a home slaving away on the computer and thinking to yourself, this is gonna be so good.
Yeah, exactly.
It was.
I know it's kind of a weird story. It was like, it's weird.
No, it's not.
No,
It's really it's a charming story.
Up
really
to this
is.
day, it's literally the only plan that's ever worked in your life.
Yeah, it is.
Not going to play football.
Yeah.
Not going to be a barista anymore.
Yeah.
Take that off.
Yeah.
And so that was one of the other things that I kind of wanted, and another thing I just kept praying for. So the only thing I really prayed for growing up was really I wanted to marry Grace and play football at Clemson. And I got both of them. So
Yeah.
Glory to the Lord.
That's awesome. I love that story.
So we ended up dating.
Yeah.
And then we haven't stopped dating since.
When did y'all get married?
February 24th. Not
Uh-oh.
24th. Don't do that to me. 20th. 22nd. February 22nd.
All right, Harrison, clip that out.
Yeah. What
Yeah,
year
cut
was
that
that?
out.
How
First
long?
summer, yeah.
How long have you
That
guys
was
been
2 years
married?
ago.
2 years. All right, so she was up there with
She would
you.
kill me if she heard that. February 22nd.
She went to Canada with you.
Yeah,
when
she did.
you-
Yeah.
So she felt all that was going on then.
Oh, yeah.
All right, how did you guys end up in Greenville?
All of our friends are in Greenville. And so we went back home and we were looking for houses in Columbia area. And we kept putting down payments. No, we kept putting offers on houses and they kept getting denied. And I was like, dude, we're going over asking and we're getting like denied. And I didn't necessarily want to live in Columbia in the first place. I knew all my friends were in Greenville. We always came up here all the time to hang out with them on the weekends. And so we ended up after like our fourth house getting like denied, we were like, well, we'll rent in Columbia on Lake Murray on a condo. And that ended up getting rejected. And we were like, well, we should probably pray about this.
Yeah.
Like, where should we go? And we remember coming up to Greenville to hang out with our friends, like a couple weekends after that. And on the way home to Columbia, we were sad that we were leaving. And that's when it was like, dude, hey, y'all know me now. I'm an extremist. So
That's
it's like
right.
All in.
I'm not scared of this. And I ended up like I put in my 2 weeks. I worked at Orange Theory
Okay.
at the time, and
Yeah.
so I found a Orange Theory up here to work at, and I moved like this was like maybe a month later. Before we got married, I moved up, and she moved up after we got married.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so
So that's why you kind of came onto the scene in the upstate like very quickly then, because you had literally just moved here.
yeah, I'd say so. Yeah.
Yeah. So, all right, let's skip to Crash. Actually, first, how did you land working out at SVL?
Yeah, so I just had I started at Reaction with
Okay.
Amy. That's the
Mhm.
first kind of gym. And that just didn't work out. And so then I went to SVL. I worked at New Spring.
Mm-hmm.
After I got done with Orange Theory, got a job at New Spring, and one of my coworkers worked out at SVL, and so he was super into CrossFit, named Matt, and during COVID, this is around when COVID hit,
Mm-hmm.
I worked down in his garage
Okay.
every day, and so then once the gyms opened back up, that's when I was like, okay, like I'll go to SVL. So
Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right, so we go to Crash Crucible 2020 in the middle of COVID.
mm-hmm.
Talk about that. Did you know going into that competition that there was going to be kind of an elite type feeling there as far as who was
Yeah.
going to be competing?
Yeah, I remember looking up all these guys, Jake Berman,
Mhm.
Kyle Bernier, Josh Miller, and I knew that this was going to be a test to see where I matched up against these guys. And I had done all my research about all these guys, so I
Yeah.
knew Jake and
Yeah.
Kyle had been to Dubai. Jake had been to Rogue,
Mm-hmm.
and Kyle just came in fourth at the Mayhem Classic. I knew all this stuff.
Right.
And Josh had been to the CrossFit Games, and so I knew that if I had won, I could also compete with at this level. And so, I definitely knew. I knew that they were elite, probably more than they did.
Yeah.
And there was also the insecurities that come along with that. I've done so much research that you start believing the fact that you're not as fit as them,
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
So when you in that first workout, that huge chipper, were you in the last? Did
You remember this?
Oh yeah, dude, I was there. But I don't remember what heat you were in. What heat did JR put you in at the beginning of the
I was last
competition?
one.
You were in the last
Yeah.
heat. Okay, so he knew that you were good enough to already be with those last couple guys then.
I think there was 8 of us.
Because we were talking to Taylor last week, and
Yeah, they
Taylor
put him
was
in the third one.
third or fourth heat. He was very sour about that.
He
Ended up
was.
winning the workout.
He was.
He won the workout and then kind of didn't. I mean, how well did Taylor do the rest of that?
Not as well as Jason.
No, obviously not.
I can't remember what place. I think did he get fourth maybe?
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, fourth.
By a point.
Yeah. But I think
Like
that's
I
a
really
sour
thought he was
spot.
gonna come out when he did the first workout. I was like, man.
Well,
he's
we were at a Myrtle Beach competition.
going at it.
We were at a Myrtle Beach competition a couple months before, and nobody knew who he was. And there was the final, and he was in the final, and he almost beat Josh in the final workout. And that's the first time I saw him, ever work out. And I said, that dude is, I don't know who that dude is, but he doesn't have any style. This dude's got he's wearing gray Nike socks. No one
Right.
wears gray Nike socks, bro.
There it is.
He still wears them.
Yeah.
I tell him not to. And so then he's got we were in Myrtle Beach, and he's not having no protection on his head, so he's bald, and
Right.
it's like a tomato head.
Just fanning that fire.
I know.
I hope he listens to this.
He
Keep
will,
going.
He will. Let me see what else I can say
Yeah.
about him. And so I'm seeing this country boy. He's not matching. He's got a tomato head. And I looked him up on Instagram after, and I was like, that dude looks like he loves pain, like loves pain. And then I knew that when we were at Crash, I saw him again, and nobody knew about him except like me, and I'm sure I saw a select few guys, but I knew that dude was like mad, like working out mad. Like I could see it in his eyes before the event. Like I didn't know him at the time, so I didn't talk to him.
Right.
But like I saw it in his eyes, like before the event, he was like walking around like prowling, dude. And I was like, that dude is about to win this workout.
He's coming for blood.
Dude,
Yeah,
when I saw him, all I could think of was like, this is a very big leprechaun. I was like, this Irish guy's gonna come out here and win this thing. You know,
Super
like,
stout. Yeah.
He literally blew that workout
When
away.
I saw him on the last runner, I couldn't believe he was going that fast.
Yeah.
It was insane.
Yeah, so he did that, and
Yeah.
it was impressive.
Cool, man. So you won the Crash Crucible, and then everybody here in the upstate kind of knew to be watching you. Kevin and I had a podcast with Sean Woodland, and that was before the MAC, and we knew that you were going to the MAC. You had just qualified, and we were like, watch out for this guy, and he had never heard of you before.
I walked in when we were at the MAC. I walked up to the control room where Sean were at, and I was like, remember what we told you.
Yeah.
Watch for him.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about first real quick about the Open. It was really cool to see you do the rowing wall ball over CrossFit .com or whatever they did. They did the what was it, the 4 screen thing?
Yeah.
For the top 4 people in that workout. Talk about that workout real quick.
Yeah, so that was during the Open or quarterfinals?
Was that quarterfinals?
That was quarterfinals.
Oh, quarterfinals.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
Quarterfinals. So that was during quarterfinals, and I remember they released the leaderboard once on one day, and then they released the end results the next day. And after day 1, they released the results, and my first 2 workouts were like, I think both of them were like in the 100s in the world, and I was sitting at like just outside the top 100. Like I knew I was gonna go to the A semi, but I knew the wall ball row workout was gonna like allow me to like it's gonna help me a lot. Like I knew I was gonna be like top 50.
Like it's your bread and butter. I mean,
Yeah, like I knew I was gonna be top 50 in the world, and so I knew like I was sitting like just inside the 120, and I knew I was good. Like this is gonna like put me in the 100, top 100. We got a heavy like snatch cycle, burpee box jump over. Like we're good. Like got the first 2 worst workouts out of the way, and I'm still able to qualify for a semi. So I was good, but I was so mad because I had just like emptied the tank on the first 2 workouts, like died. I felt like I had a great strategy, and they come back, and I'm like, no, like you're not in the top 100 in any of these. And for some reason in that moment, like I was so fed up and I was so mad that was like the result, that I was like, okay, like I had planned to do the row wall ball the next day. And I remember like as soon as the leaderboard showed, like it was like within like 20 minutes, I said, get in the car. We're going right now. And I got in the car. We went to SVL. It was me, Jared, and my wife and my dog. I put on Morgan Wallen, and I just went to work. And I remember like rowing with the feeling of being fed up. Like I knew like, hey, I'm going to do unbroken wall balls. It's not going to be a big deal. But when I get on this rower, like all the thoughts that I have, like because wall balls like are mindless. Like you just keep doing them. But on the rower, if you can get into that flow, like you can really like keep like row harder than if you weren't in the flow. And so I said like wall balls are wall balls, like in the flow or not, like you're gonna do unbroken. But I knew like when you get in that row, like that's 120 cows. That's a lot of time. And so I knew like make every second count. And so I made sure that when I get on that rower, I remember thinking about all those thoughts that I just had an hour ago of like not being good enough, like not X, Y, and Z, like the whole 9 yards. And I just kept telling the same thoughts, like, you're going to regret this if you're not going harder. And I was pulling like 1,800.
Wow.
I was like, you're going to regret this if it's not a 1,900 right now.
Uh-huh.
And I have like 2 minutes, 3 minutes left in the row.
Oh my
I'm like, you're
goodness.
going to regret this if you don't hold it a 1,900 the whole time, or 1,800. And so emptied it right there.
And you ended up getting what place in that workout?
First.
That's
Yeah.
right. First in the world. Did you tie? Was it a tie?
It was a tie, yeah.
Yeah, okay, that's what I thought. All right, awesome. So we make it to the MAC. For that MAC process, that was obviously your first choice. That's where you wanted to go?
Yep.
Cool.
Yep.
All right, so what were you thinking when you got there?
Stacked.
Yeah.
It was stacked.
Because we literally talked to you, like a week before that at Fittest.
At Fittest.
And I remember you kind of being like, well, I'm going against Scott Panchik. I'm going against
So
Justin
those guys intimidated me a lot. And I knew that there was like 8 of us so I was seated 8, I believe, 7 or 8, or I think 8. And the people in front of me had like all been to the games. So I was the first person that was seated that hadn't been to the games. And they only took 5. And I knew that in order for me to win, like, I'm going to have to beat 3 games athletes or veterans or whoever it was. And that was kind of the thing. Like, I don't have to beat all of them. I just got to beat 3 games athletes, and I'll be good. And so I was like, I remember like thinking around, like, I could beat Ben Smith. Like, I could beat.
That was my next question.
He's getting
Which
older.
one were you gonna beat?
Yeah, he's been. And then I was thinking, I was like, I don't know. I was thinking about this other guy. I forgot his name. He was seated right before me. He had been like a couple of times. Like, he wasn't getting that much light shown on him, and so I knew, like, hey, he had been to the games, but like he wasn't better than the other guys.
Uh-huh.
So I was like, dude, I could beat this guy too. And then that was like, well, that means all I gotta do is beat just one really good guy. Like Ben Smith and the other guy was like really good, but it's like, if I just beat like maybe a Travis May or like a Scott Panchik or like Justin, like I'm good. Just beat one of them. And then we get there, and that was like the game plan.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah.
So at what point during the weekend were you like, because watching this, I was watching it. I remember this. We were in Hilton Head on vacation that week, and I was the only person inside because I was watching it on the TV. And I just remember watching you, and it just seemed like, sometimes people, you can just kind of sense like this aura that somebody has. Like, you had this look of like complete confidence in that weekend. Every single workout, you just seem so calm and collected, and just this blank face.
Right.
And so did you feel that way on the inside, or on the inside were you crying?
Crying in a good way?
Yeah.
No, I felt that way. It was a moment, an experience that I had never necessarily felt before. And it's hard to describe. Like, I was like in my flow. Like, I was like, it was in-body experience, but like I felt like it was like I have never felt this way. Like, I've never like felt this good working out. Like, I've never felt this like this attacking mode, if you will, like this dog mentality. Like, I've never felt any of this stuff. Like this, also this assurance that I was feeling of like all the work paying off in the moment. So like all this is coming at me in the same moment, and people are like figuring me out. Like, they know who I am now, and it's like all the work is paying off right now.
So when you hit that 300-pound snatch, was that the first time you ever hit 300 before?
Yeah.
Because I remember, I literally was like, I was in the arena too, because I, was doing my job. But I literally, when you walked up to it, I was like, this is going to be a make or break. Really, it was. And I looked at him, and I looked at you, and I got the photos and everything, and I'm looking at you, and you just, there's one where you just kind of sort of shake your arms out and everything, and you can see it in the photo. And you look at your face, and it's just like you're there, but you're not there. Like, it's like,
No, that's what I felt like the whole weekend.
yeah, it's like, and there was another time too. Like when you hit it, I was like, I thought, in my humble opinion, I thought that's his statement.
Mm-hmm.
He hit 300. You know, everybody was like, Ben Smith hit 300.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, they were like, oh, that's the dad weight. Everybody's hitting the dad weight. And
Yeah.
I was like, this guy just hit 300.
Yeah.
He's never done it. Lit the place up. And then the very next day, you came out first
Yep.
after the first day. The very next day, I'm up in the catwalk, and you guys are doing I think it's like the thruster or whatever. You take it back or whatever.
Yep.
And I was looking down, and one of the judges got mad at you for something, and like she no-repped you or whatever, because you would drop it and the bar would jump over. And you just kind of gave her an earful, and I was like, dude, you can't, in my head, and I'm like, you got to go. You just can't do this because and then, but you caught back up.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was just, and I'm watching it above everybody, and I'm like, this kid's going to go somewhere. So I walked back down after that event, I walked back down there, and I'm talking to like the judges and stuff, and they're like, yeah, he has that potential.
Mm.
He does. So you had already cemented it in their mind. You just, you
Right.
said, you just had to do it. But that was my perception when I saw you. I was just like,
So did you have your phone on at all during that weekend, like after the competition?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
So obviously the followers started coming in, right?
Yeah.
It was funny because I remember watching, I think after the first event that you did really well in. I mean, you did well in all the events.
Mm.
I remember looking at your Instagram, and I think at that point maybe you had like, I don't know, 3,000 to 5,000 followers or something like that. And then literally 24 hours later, you had like 20,000 followers or something like that. So what was that like? Was it a constant ping? Did you just turn everything off, or you're just like,
No,
holy cow?
I thought it was cool.
Yeah. Were you getting a lot of messages from
Yeah, I
random
was my
people?
son, yeah.
I actually sent him a picture from on the second day. They had him up there.
Yeah.
And I snapped it. I said, look, dude, you're here. He's like, hey, man, thanks.
No, it was cool. It was surreal for sure.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right, so you obviously win the MAC. You become this big name. You go on Sevon. You have the Buttery Bros come in, and you have all this happen to you before the games.
Yeah.
My question to you, and maybe this is too personal, do you wish you would have waited on doing some of that stuff prior to like actually going to the games? Or are you still like you wouldn't change anything?
No, I wouldn't change it.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. No, that stuff didn't necessarily affect my games results.
Yeah.
There was some stuff that was like other stuff that was happening.
Sure.
That wasn't necessarily like the Buttery Bros coming or whatever it was. There was just some things that I didn't have dialed in I've never been there.
Right.
And so there were some things that I was hit like with a brick when I got there. And so Jared was competing.
Yeah.
And so that was something that was tough. And so it was a snowball effect from day one. But it was just like none of the outside stuff, none of like the things that looked like they would have affected me were the things that affected me.
Right.
It was just some things that
It was just lack of experience. I mean, the CrossFit Games is completely different than the MAC, right? Just all the outside factors as far as odd objects, swimming, all that stuff that goes in. I get that. But, all right, let's talk about how cool it was then to have the Buttery Bros come to town.
It was amazing.
Yeah. I just rewatched the episode the other night. It's so cool, yeah.
It was awesome. Those dudes are awesome. Both of
So
them.
were you?
I took them everywhere. I tried to.
Were you nervous at all when you were like had to go pick them up or anything?
No, so we met in Tennessee at the mat.
yeah.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah,
Okay,
so
yeah,
we were able to chat a little bit then,
Yeah.
and then I knew that after we had a few conversations there, and then once they came here, we were cool then.
That's awesome.
So
Did you know exactly where you were going to take them as far as restaurants and
no,
pancakes or whatever?
I knew I wanted to take them to Stacks Omega.
Yeah.
Have you all been there?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's amazing. I didn't take him to the original though. I took him to the
Went over by Pelham. Yeah.
Did you at least take him to the original Krispy Kreme in Spartanburg?
No, I didn't even know that was a thing. So I took him there. I took him to nosedive.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
I took we had sweet potato cake.
Yeah,
That
saw
was
that.
that was probably the best experience they had.
Mhm.
And then so we just bounced around. It was fun.
That's cool, man. Talk a little bit about having training partners like JR leading up to the CrossFit Games.
He'd get mad at some stuff that I want to say.
Dude, just say it. He's been on this podcast 3 times.
No, I mean he I love JR. He's helped me tremendously.
Yeah.
Not only with like mindset stuff, but like being a race dummy, if you will.
Sure.
But yeah, dude, he doesn't do all the workouts with me.
Mm-hmm.
It's either it's hit or miss these days. I mean, he has a bunch of responsibilities.
Right.
But leading up to the games, he kind of like went all in and was like, hey, like I'm training for the games as well. And so he was more of like, he did kind of all my training. Like he would just ask me what I had, and he was okay with like just racing. And so it was really good. He beat me in some stuff during those days. Not these days. Those days.
Daddy of 2. Let's go. That's awesome, man. Yeah, he's
he calls himself a punching bag.
right. He's very humble.
So now you have Matt Frazier as your coach. Am I correct?
Yeah.
How's that going? What does
Good.
that feel like? Like earlier you mentioned like when you first saw these movies and stuff, you're like, who's Matt Frazier and all this kind of stuff. And now we're talking, he's your coach.
Yeah, it's kind of weird because like I know him now.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's not as like, it may not be as like eye-opening as it would to you on
Right.
the outside. But like if I were to tell like the college kid, hey, like Matt Frazier's going to be your coach, he would be like freaking out.
Right.
But now that I know him as like a friend,
Mm-hmm.
he's like he's a normal guy, and I made him like a god, if you will.
Right.
And so I was
Right.
like, Matt Frazier. And now that I know him, it's kind of like, okay, cool. Like he's a normal guy. Like it's not, I wouldn't say it's the biggest deal that he's my coach. Like it's a really cool opportunity and really cool.
Right.
It's a gift from the Lord, that he's even willing to do that. And we get along really well. But I don't hype it up as much as other people might.
Of course. Yeah. I think that's any relationship, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I used to think Kevin was super cool and intimidating, but not
And
anymore.
once you meet him, it's like,
No.
yeah, I know.
No, I mean I know exactly where you're coming
Yeah.
from, kind of sort of to an extent. Like when I started doing the photography and stuff, you know, like I met Ben Smith. I used to, you know, I shot for Go Tape, and I would go and meet these people, and I'd be like, you'd watch them, and you'd stand back and you'd see them, and you'd be like, wow, you'd be really in awe. But then you realize they're doing their job.
Yeah.
That's what they do. I mean,
Yeah.
and they're just like anybody else. And so, you know, I think I've told the story where Rich Froning was he was actually trying his new Reebok shoe,
Mm-hmm.
the first one, and he kind of flipped it off. He goes, here, try it on.
Yeah.
You know, so I mean, who puts
Yeah.
on Rich Froning's shoes? You know, and I was like, all right, it's a nice shoe, Rich. It really is. You know, but I mean, you know, it's funny. I always tell people they're just like anybody else in your gym.
Right.
You can find a Matt Frazier in your gym. You could find a Ron Ortiz in your gym. You know, you could find a Tia Toomey in your gym. That person is in your gym. You just have to find that person.
Right.
You know.
All right. So like I said, lots of things have happened in the last 6 months. Can you name like a certain thing that was like maybe your favorite thing that's happened, or like the most exciting, other than maybe winning the MAC?
The most exciting?
Yeah. Like maybe going to Vegas or
Going to Vermont was pretty fun.
Yeah.
I learned so much.
Yeah.
I can't tell you the things I've learned on this podcast because some other folks might listen to it.
Right.
I can't give that away. But I think that was probably probably the best thing.
That was your first time.
Went to Miami as well. That was fun.
Oh yeah, that's
for
right.
Wadapalooza
Yeah,
filming.
cool.
But as far as like things that I've like gained to like help me, that was going to Vermont was like something that will help me tremendously.
And Vermont's beautiful too.
Yeah, it was.
Actually, my wife and we got engaged in Vermont. What part of Vermont does he live in?
Burlington.
Okay, so we were like an hour from there, Brattleboro. But
Okay.
yeah, we love going there.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
So do you think you've closed the hole? Do you feel like you're bulletproof now?
No, I know I have a lot of things I still got to work on. But I have closed the gap. I wouldn't say entirely. I don't think I necessarily ever will.
If you said you had one weakness, what would you say it was? Or what would you think it is?
I can't tell you that.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're on.
No, I mean I get that.
What happens if Jackson or Sergio hears my weakness?
Yeah, but how do you know that you're not just telling them that to think that? Strategy.
And it would be pointless. Okay.
Reverse psychology, bro.
Well, I think right now my biggest one is
wall balls for sure.
Wall
balls and rowing.
Oh yeah.
And that's it.
Yeah.
And
anything over like a 20-minute domain, I hate.
Right, I'm sure those 40-minute.
I hate those trippers and chippers.
Yeah.
So we've got the Rogue Invitational. You're heading to Austin, Texas. When are you leaving?
Next Wednesday.
Next Wednesday. Cool. Is your wife going with you?
She is.
That's awesome.
Is Rick going with you too?
Who?
Rick Jones gonna do your photos.
I didn't know. I thought you said Rich. No, Rick's not going.
No.
All right, so really excited, kind of nervous, kind of both. What's your
I
feelings?
haven't necessarily thought about it or like hyped it up as much as I have other competitions. Trying some different like mindset approaches. I will be nervous when I get there, but I know that I previously for the games, for instance, I hyped it up so much that when I got there was unnecessary pressure that I put on myself because I hyped it up so much for myself personally that I don't think is necessarily. I just don't think it's necessary for this competition. I like in the sense of like me putting pressure on myself that is unnecessary. There will be pressure there, but I can manage that pressure. Like if I just completely thought about it, this idea of like going to the Rogue and like wanting to do well and like wanting to get my next shot at these guys and like turning the table on what people think about me, or going to win. Like if I just completely immerse myself in those thoughts and those like dreams and fantasize about that kind of stuff, then when I get there, that pressure is going to be felt because I just hyped it up so much over the last 2 months maybe. And it's just unnecessary. Instead, I'm going to go there and enjoy the moment and enjoy the idea of just being able to do this sport and give my best.
Yeah, it's CrossFit. It's a blessing to do it.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Let me ask you this real quick. Obviously, you've broke through the ceiling. You've been to the games.
Yeah.
You're now considered one of the elite athletes. You're obviously one to watch. How does that weigh on you, and how much? I mean, has it changed? Obviously, it has changed a little bit, but I mean, like you said before, my dream was to play football, was to go to NFL. Well, God obviously had a different plan for you.
Right.
His dream was you to go and get here.
Sure.
How has that changed Jayson as a person, as a husband, as a man?
Yeah, that's a good question. It makes me appreciate a lot things, or makes me appreciate a lot more, just because I know there was so much on the outside that had gone into that. Like my wife, has made me a lot more grateful for my wife, which then in return allows me to become a better husband, because I'm able to in return like try to love her just as much as she loves me and like serve her. Because she has been like the absolute foundation of like she's got me to the games. Like she did all the nutrition. Like she made sure I was like eating enough. Like she made all of the meals. Like she still makes my meals. Like she wasn't at home this morning, and I woke up and I ate a waffle.
I didn't know it's
like that was that, and
she's your Sammy.
I ate a waffle, and what else did I eat this morning? I ate a bowl of cereal after I ate a waffle. I had like 2 hours after that, and I ate a bowl of cereal. I was like, I'm getting hungry again. I need to eat. Ate some cereal. Didn't eat lunch. Went to she got home. I had a chiropractor appointment, so I went to the chiropractor, got a Smoothie King shake.
Oh man!
So you basically ate
Like
yourself today.
You ate your cheat meals.
You're like,
and then I get home and she made me a chicken salad sandwich. But I'm trying to like show you, like, without her, like,
right.
there's no way I'm able to run on the fuel that I'm feeding myself.
Right.
And then she's like, she also there's a mental side of it as well. Like, she's the one that's been like telling me that she believes in me,
Right.
and telling me that I can be as good as I want to be in this sport. I can do anything I want. Just go make it happen. And so, like, I get very insecure of like doubting myself because I put so much pressure on myself. And so it's hard for me to believe those same thoughts, you know? And so hearing it from the outside is just reassuring.
Right.
And so she has been amazing. And so to answer your question, like, it's helped me in return, like, appreciate her a lot more, and just understand the magnitude, not only her, but like, I'm a lot more appreciative of JR, and the coaches who have poured into me, and taught me the things that I've learned. And so just being a lot more grateful and understanding that this isn't a one-man show. Like, I'm the one that actually goes out there and does the competing, but this is absolutely a team effort for sure.
Let me ask you this too. This is kind of like a looking forward kind of thing, kind of question. You know, I have no doubt. I kind of hope, but I have no doubt that we're sitting here with the future games champion. With that being said, I know that's a lot of pressure, but you know, are you gonna, if you do win one, are you gonna? I mean, do you obviously went to Vermont? Are you gonna have the same mindset that Matt had, where he was like, "All right, I've won one. I'm gonna go until I get tired." And just kind of sort of close ranks. And I mean, obviously, Matt's wife, he and his wife obviously sacrificed a lot for him to be able to do that. You know, he came out, hard work pays off. You know, he said that in all his past interviews and stuff. Are you willing to do that?
To win and then to do it again?
I mean, are you willing to go through that much? I mean, to put.
I like to think I am.
Okay.
Obviously, it's different once you win one. And because one thing he did tell me is that, hey, it's hard to win one, but it's harder to win another one. And for some reason, I can't stop thinking about that, you know?
Yeah.
And so I know that in my past, like, if you go look at all the things that we just talked about, once I achieve something, like, there's a part of me that's like, okay, I'm done. And so it's like, I played football at Clemson.
Right.
You know, it's like, that was enough, you know? And I'm scared that if I do win, that there will be this moment of like, I have reached the ultimate like pursuit of greatness in this sport. Like, I've become the fittest man on earth. And I'm afraid that once that does happen, there will be no longer like a chase after that.
Except for what, 5 more to
except for
beat
5
Matt?
more. And that would be a decision I would make. Like, hey, like, if was the pinnacle like becoming the fittest man in the world? Because and when I train, I'm not thinking about 5. I'm not thinking about, hey, like, I'm not like in the deepest, like, darkest moments of training, the thought isn't, oh, I needed to win 5 or like that's the dream. No, it's like, I'm trying to become the fittest man on earth, and like, I'm willing to endure this pain right now to become the fittest man on earth. So when that happens, I don't know what that next day of training is going to be like. You know?
So I mean, I guess I'm gonna. Sorry, but I guess what is your motivation then? I mean, what keeps you motivated?
Yeah, I want to ask a question that kind of relates to that.
Okay.
So, your mentor and your coach, Matt Fraser, has publicly said multiple times that his motivation for the majority, at least the first half of his career, was money. Right? He wanted to earn as much money as he could so that he can do exactly what he's doing right now. Next weekend, you have the potential to win 6 figures, which is quite a bit of money. Is that a thought that goes through your head, or is this still all about the process and winning, or has this become a little bit more of a professionalized sport for you now that you're like, maybe you're a Nike-sponsored athlete?
Right. It has become that simply because it is a profession right now. And at the end of the day, if I don't perform, then that contract's up in 2 years, and so it's like someone's got to pay the bills. And so there is a level of like, this is your job now. Like, this is paying the bills. It's $250,000 to the winner. And like, as a 24-year-old guy, like,
That's life changing.
yeah,
Yep.
exactly. Like, that's if I win that money, it's gonna pay for my children's college.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm gonna invest it, and then I'm gonna make more than what I get. And so there's a lot of things that can go into making that much money. You know, like my daughter's wedding is gonna be paid for. Like, I'm thinking longevity here of that. And so there's a lot of pressure in that. On the other end, I know that I don't need that much money to be successful and content. I'm very content with my life right now, with the money I make now. And so I don't need that much money, nor do I want to get in a place where I'm constantly chasing that itch for that much money, because that's a dangerous place to be. I have enough. I don't make six figures, but I have enough right now because I'm content with the Lord, and He's blessed me. And I know that whatever I do, it doesn't even have to be CrossFit. I'm going to be completely content because He's given me everything I need. And whether that's winning Rogue next week or coming in third or coming in last, like whatever it may be, the money side of it won't be an itch. The only desire I want, the only reason I would want money is for me to be a blessing to other people and to have that much money so that my children someday could benefit from it, and that my wife would no longer have to work, or those sorts of things. Those are the reasons why I would want to win that much money.
I love that. That's great.
We've talked this with other athletes about the whole money aspect of it and prize purses. What do you think as far as going forward in CrossFit for it to become more professionalized? Do you see them needing to do?
That's a good question. I haven't even thought about that. I think there needs to be just some, I don't know. I have no idea. Never thought about that.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's like like you said, it's your daily job now. I mean, you're paid to get up to go work out.
I'm sure there could be some things that are tweaked, but I also think it's CrossFit. The sport in general is still out of its very young age, and so it's still growing. And I think in 20 years, if it's still a sport, then I think it'll have grown into a way more professional.
I agree.
Sport.
I have no doubt it's still going to be around in 20 years. I think.
Well, I mean, you should. You're
paving the way.
Yeah,
to
you're
it.
paving the way.
I mean, you're the future.
I would start thinking.
In 20 years,
a
you're
things.
44. So I mean, you're
Right.
still. I mean, that's all you, man. You and your people you're competing against right now. I mean, you guys are going to continue to pave the way for the future kids. And nah, dude, I think it's awesome. I think it's awesome that a guy like you, 24 years old, like I have two little boys. You know, every parent has aspirations and dreams for their kids. And, you know, right now, I love it that maybe right now I'm their hero, right? I have a 4-year-old and 2-year-old, but I know in 4 years when they're an 8 and 6-year-old, there's going to be a Jayson Hopper out there that they're like looking up to, you know, kind of like I looked up to Michael Jordan or, you know, Barry Sanders. So I think just hearing what you said today and just basically relaying your testimony out was very powerful. So I'm super honored that you came onto this podcast, and also I can't wait for my kids to just watch you over the next 10 years participate in the sport. Yeah, for sure. What do you think? You want to do some rapid fire questions?
Sure. After hearing what he eats when his wife's not around.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
Nothing is the answer.
That's right. We need to know what your favorite cheat meal is.
Sweet potato cake.
Oh, that's
cake.
easy.
I
for
eat
sure.
so much cake.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Too much cake.
Okay, so Harrison, our engineer, has got a black card. No limits. You can go anywhere in the world, you and your wife. Where are y'all going?
Do I have a certain amount of time to answer this?
Right now, it's 15 seconds.
Cancun. You ever played have you ever been to the Excellence?
The what?
Is that a resort?
Dude.
No, have
we
not
went
been
there on honeymoon. We would go there right now.
Okay, cool.
Oh,
The Excellence.
Yeah, I've been to Cancun, but I haven't been there now. We went on a cruise for our honeymoon.
Maybe Greece. Probably Greece, actually.
Yeah.
I'm trying. For some reason, I was thinking of I don't know. I would definitely go to Greece.
Awesome.
I would get a yacht. Dude, don't get me carried away.
out there
You
and
got
they
that
work
black card, man. You can do whatever you
Grease.
want.
Do
I'll
whatever
go
you
to
wanna do.
Greece.
That's
I'll go to
right.
Greece.
All right. If you had to go take a trip and you were going to be on a board or you're going to do some adventure, would you rather go snowboarding or surfing?
Snowboarding.
Snowboarding. Cool.
All right, so it's the final workout of the games,
Mm-hmm.
and the championship's on the line. Who's to your left and who is to your right?
Is it just us three?
It could be the final heat. So let's make it 5 people in the
Okay.
final heat. Who are those? Who are the other 4?
And they could be anybody. It doesn't have to be current CrossFit Games athletes or any athlete. It could be anybody.
I want Taylor there.
You
But-
do love him. That's cute.
Not number 2 or 3. I want him barely in, so number 5. Barely in 5.
Yeah.
I want Medeiros there.
Hmm.
I want Matt Frazier there.
Yeah.
That's 3.
Yeah.
I'm number 1.
You got
and
one
then
more.
I got one more. I think Vellner will be cool.
Hmm.
He's a cool dude. I'll let him be number 2.
Yeah, he's the one that's got all the candies for you, right?
Yeah. He's a nice guy.
All right.
Canadian.
Yeah, how can you go wrong? All right, here's a question for you. I've asked a couple other people this question. You played Clemson football, so you've been around, D1 athletes, NFL-bound athletes. If you could choose one athlete from like a different sport, whether it's basketball, football, baseball, and they're a professional athlete right now, and you think they could absolutely crush it in CrossFit if they were getting the same contract and they wanted to play CrossFit, who would it be?
I don't know. All the sports that I watch, those dudes are like 6'6", like 250.
Yeah, yeah.
They would not do well at
Right.
CrossFit. I don't know. I have no idea.
All right, think about it. We'll come back to it.
All right.
Okay. So if you could go back to your 9th grade year
Mhm.
and have a conversation with yourself in the 9th grade, knowing what you know now,
Right.
what advice would you give yourself?
That's a good question. I would sit him down and I would say, "Hey, dude, you're an idiot. First of all, whatever you think is right, you should probably ask some other folks because it's probably not right." But I would say, 1, get into church and ask a bunch of questions and keep asking questions. Find a dude who is a good dad, a good pastor, a good at whatever it may be, and ask him questions and make sure you do exactly what he says, even if it's not exactly what you want to do. As far as like ways to think and handle situations. I would say you don't need a girlfriend, even when you really, really want one. And I would say never stop working hard, because you're gonna grow up, and you're gonna get into a day and age where working hard isn't gonna be as the most glamorous thing. People are gonna have things instantly when you're 24 years old. Make sure you take the longer road. Keep working hard, and whatever you desire to do, dream bigger, and go after it until you get it. Because the only person that's stopping you is you.
That's great.
Yeah.
I don't think we need to go any farther
Nope,
with
I don't
her. I
either.
think that was like lay the mic down.
That's it.
It's perfect. Jason, really appreciate you coming.
I appreciate
over
this.
Here,
This
dude.
is awesome.
This was
Let's do it
really
again.
fun, dude. We're
Well,
in.
whatever.
Don't tell Savan.
Where can they find you on the social medias at? On the SoCal Meds.
Hopper3 on Instagram.
Nice.
Awesome, dude. Well, we're all gonna be watching next weekend.
Appreciate it.
No pressure. We're just here to
No
support
pressure.
you, and whatever happens. Like you've got
Yeah.
so many fans out here who love you either way. So,
I appreciate it.
Yes.
all right,
It's gonna
brother.
be awesome.
Well, y'all heard it here.
Apogee Podcast.
See ya.